A young writer named Blake writes an article for her column in a college newspaper, declaring that romance is dead. She feels this way because she has been having meaningless flings with college guys.
Do you have any siblings?
And now she longs for something real, like the relationship her parents had. The next morning, their editor named River rejects her write-up, and Blake loses her romance column. She then gets assigned to write a review on a club, and she gets frustrated by this, declaring that she'll do something awesome to reclaim her position. That night, Blake hangs out with her friend Nikki. They buy some drinks from a store to get a little tipsy before heading to the club that Blake is assigned to review. Upon showing her ID, the bouncer refuses to let Blake because she has someone else's ID. The young lady realizes that her ID got swapped in the liquor store, so she asks her friend to go on without her as she must find her ID first. She goes to the address written on the card, and there she meets Morgan, whom she swapped ID with. Morgan invites her to stay for a drink with a man named Bobby, to which the young lady accepts. Bobby seems to like the young lady, so Morgan brings Blake to the bathroom where she tells her that she is very pretty and that she should use her looks to her advantage. She says that Bobby will pay her to stay, and Blake says she is not a prostitute. Morgan reassures that she wouldn't have to do anything she didn't want to do, but Blake politely declines, saying that she has a class early tomorrow. The following morning, Blake tells her friends about her bizarre experience last night. While Blake finds it sad that girls had to sell their bodies to afford college, the two think that the idea of having sugar daddies is cool. At school, Blake asks River to give her column back because she has an interesting story to write about last night. However, the editor declines, especially that she failed to write the review on the club. To make matters worse, River writes a reference letter for another writer named Jacob, but not for her. This leaves Blake unable to apply for the prestigious Thompson Award, which comes with a prize of $50,000. Determined to write an awesome article, Blake heads straight to Morgan's apartment to interview her about her lifestyle. Morgan shares that she's very happy getting paid for her looks and has earned enough to buy designer bags and travel to Paris twice this year. This idea intrigues Blake, and when Morgan invites her to join a trip to a lake house owned by Bobby's friends, she agrees. There she meets Bobby's friend named Ian, who turns out to be an MBA professor. Ian invites Blake to join him in the pool, and Blake initially declines, saying that she didn't bring a swimsuit. However, as she finds the older man attractive, Blake eventually jumps into the pool to accompany him. Before she heads home, Ian gives her his business card, suggesting that they hang out again if she feels like it. The next day, the editor is impressed by her lake house story, but he doesn't see the point of it if Blake is not going to date the professor. The young writer asks if she can have her column back if she dates the old guy, and River says she does not have to do it as he will give her column back anyways. Blake feels ecstatic to finally be back on writing her romantic journey. Nikki asks why she isn't considering dating Ian even though she finds him charming and rich, and Blake doesn't have an answer. At the party, Blake bumps into her colleague Jacob, who happens to be dressed exactly like her. The two drink together as they talk about their common interest, until they end up getting intimate in her room. Blake wants to give it to him, but Jacob doesn't have a condom, so she awkwardly asks him to leave, and on his way out, Jacob accidentally puts on her pants by mistake. Blake writes the story for her column, and the editor is entertained by it. Jacob pleads not to publish it, but Rivers says he has to because Blake's column has been gaining popularity, and since their names were changed in the story, there shouldn't be a problem. While Blake is walking home with Nikki, she spots Ian on the other side of the road. She waves at him, but he seems to ignore her. That evening, Blake contemplates how she could make her story compelling enough to win the Thompson Award. And so, the young writer decides to pretend as a sugar baby for Ian, and Nikki helps her get ready for their meeting. At dinner, the professor tells her that he likes giving gifts instead of writing checks, and Blake says that she doesn't want bags or material things, she just wants to experience true romance. On their second date, Blake goes to Ian's house, and there they listen to the professor's records while lying on the floor, until they finally do it. The next morning, Blake wakes up in Ian's bed, alone but smiling to herself. She later dresses up and heads outside to leave, but she finds her bike missing, forcing her to walk all the way back to her apartment. Nikki knows that she got nailed last night, and Blake says it was nice and that she didn't ask for anything material in return. After a while, the doorbell rings, and a delivery man asks Blake to come downstairs because she has a present that is too big to bring upstairs. Outside, she finds a brand new Vespa with a note from Ian, saying sorry for stealing her bike. They immediately give it a test ride, and Blake later decides to get a new ear piercing to match her new vibe. At school, Jacob notices that Blake is also applying for the Thompson Award. He asks her if Ian knows she's writing about him to win the award, and Blake says that she changed the professor's name, implying that he isn't aware. After spending another night with Ian, the young writer asks her sugar daddy if he can write her a reference letter for the Thompson Award. The professor offers to pay off her student debts instead, so she wouldn't have to struggle for the award. Blake reminds him that he doesn't write checks, but Ian says he wouldn't mind investing in her if she agrees to stay with him as long as he wants. Despite his offer, Blake insists that for now, she would just like the reference letter. As days go by and Blake spends more time with Ian, she starts to believe that romance isn't dead after all. Ian treats her like a lady, he's true to his word, calls her on time, surprises her with roses, and takes her to the movies. One day at college, while in the washroom, Blake overhears some girls gossiping about her. They speculate that her sugar daddy bought her the bike and they label her a call girl. Upset, she goes home and discusses this with Nikki, telling her that she really feels good about what she has with Ian. As she devours the cupcakes that her friend made, she asks why they taste so good, and Nikki reveals that she sprinkled the frosting with a pill. Panicking, Blake rushes to the washroom to force herself to throw up, explaining that she can't take any pills due to her current emotional instability. Moments later, Ian comes over, carrying an expensive bracelet for Blake, hoping that she will accompany him to a wedding. Blake gets dressed up and sits in Ian's car, where he informs her that they are going to Bobby's wedding, the guy whom Morgan was involved with. At the wedding, Blake imagines herself getting married, and seeing her acting strangely, Ian asks if she's okay. The young lady admits eating a cupcake that is sprinkled with pill, but she assures that she would be fine. As the evening goes on, Blake dances with Ian and has a really great time. Bobby later sings a romantic song for his bride, and the young writer is starting to believe that true love really exists. However, when she meets the groom in the hallway, Bobby seems to show interest in her. Blake reminds him about his wife, and he says that they are actually in an open relationship. When he is about to make advances on her, the young writer kicks him in the groin and rushes away. The next day, Blake goes to Ian's house and apologizes for leaving the wedding without explanation. The professor says it isn't how their arrangement works, and he leaves. Back at home, Blake researches the relationship between a sugar daddy and a sugar baby, realizing it's different from what she has with Ian because she feels a romantic connection. That night, she meets with the professor for their dinner, and he tells her it's okay for her to show up at his house, but she shouldn't do it without asking. She reminds him that he came to her house unannounced for the wedding too, to which he replies that he brought a gift necklace to make up for it. Blake asks if he has any siblings, and Ian says that they don't need to ask unnecessary questions. Blake wants to head home, but Ian insists it's too early and takes her to his house. For the first time, she feels disrespected when Ian gets intimate with her, and though her tears roll down her cheeks, she still lets it happen. Blake wakes up early at dawn and goes looking for her old bike. As she rides it back home, it feels like she's leaving her arrangement with Ian in the past. She later bumps into Jacob, who is also heading home after a toga party. Jacob notices that she is upset, so he comforts her and invites her over breakfast. The two have a proper conversation as friends for the first time. Both of their parents are divorced and planning to attend their graduation. Blake is surprised when Jacob asks if she has any siblings because that's the kind of question she asks on dates. Blake later goes home and finds out that Nikki has left and locked the apartment, so she ends up sleeping on the floor. She is awakened by an extremely angry Ian, who has read her column. He demands she remove every trace of it, or he'll ruin her reputation before she even has a chance to become famous. Blake refuses to delete her column. Instead, she owns her scandal by using her real name this time instead of a made-up one as she used to. She sells the bracelet Ian gave her for money and goes to her graduation using the Vespa. A police stops her for driving without a license and has the scooter towed. When she explains she's going to her graduation, the officer gives her a ride to the school. There she meets with Jacob, who gives her a red rose and kisses her passionately, and Blake feels that she's leaving the past behind and stepping into something new. Did you like our movie recap? Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. To be updated for new movie recaps, hit the notification bell.